Good afternoon. We're excited to welcome Gaelynn Lea to Talks at Google. Gaelynn is a violinist, a songwriter, and speaker who has a unique take on fiddle music, incorporating her love of traditional tunes, songwriting, poetry, and sonic exploration. Last year, she won NPR Music's Tiny Desk Contest, a competition drawing submissions of original songwriters from musicians across the country. Since winning the Tiny Desk Contest, Gaelynn's musical reach has expanded significantly, and she's released an EP, a full-length album, and has been touring across the United States and Europe. In addition to performing, Gaelynn speaks about disability, overcoming challenges, and the joy of music. She has a congenital disability called Osteogenesis Imperfecta, or more commonly known as Brittle Bone Disease. Gaelynn is a strong voice in the disabilities community. She uses her music as a platform to advocate for people with disabilities and to promote positive social change. Gaelynn believes society must work harder to prioritize accessibility so people with disabilities can participate fully in their communities and use their talents and gifts without barriers or discrimination. For today's talk, Gaelynn will first perform. Then we'll have a fireside chat discussion, which will then lead into a Q&A. Following the Q&A, she will close out with a couple final songs. So please be sure to stay for the whole thing. And for Googlers in the audience, please think of your questions for the Q&A. So without further ado, please welcome me in joining to the Chicago Google stage, Gaelynn Lea.
Thank you. Pushing up through the dirt just like a seed, but you're never quite a flower. You feel more just like a weed, driving through. You want to know where you are going, but the windshield's always dirty, and you never get to see what makes you think that you'll ever get there. What makes you think you deserve to know? Who are you really? Are you so important? Take a look around and watch the world unfold. Watch the world unfold. Watch the world unfold. Watch the world unfold. Need advice, you have no clue what you're doing. Moral compass, it is spinning, an identity unhinged. Where to turn, there's so many opinions, and they're all a little different, and the outlook's getting dim. What makes you think that you'll ever get there? What makes you think you deserve to know? Who are Are you so important? Take a look around and watch the world unfold. Watch the world unfold. Watch the world unfold. Watch the world unfold. Pushing up through the dirt just like a seed, but you're never quite a flower. You feel more just like a weed. Thank you.
Hi, Gaelynn.
Hi, thanks so much for
Thank
having
you.
me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure to have you at Google.
Yeah,
It's a beautiful performance.
thank you very much. Thanks.
Love the looping and the ambience of
Yeah.
what you're doing with the violin. It's very unique.
Thank you.
It's very expressive,
Yeah.
and it's the beauty of music. The ability to express yourself, be creative, whether it's songwriting, performing, touring. How did you get your start in music?
Well, I got started way back in 5th grade. So the orchestra came to our elementary school and played for us to try to entice us into joining orchestra the next year. And I really loved the sound of the strings. And I talked to my parents and I was like, next year I want to join orchestra. So I didn't really think about how I was going to play. I figured, usually my whole life has been spent kind of just figuring stuff out. So when I got there, I took the music listening test, and I was the only student in the class that year that got a perfect score, so the teacher took it upon herself to help me figure it out, even though we didn't really know how I was going to play. So I tried a bunch of the different instruments, and the cello was too big, and the violin was too big on my shoulder, but we kind of came to this idea of playing it up and down like a cello, and it was really fun, and I've been doing it ever since. Kind of along this path that's led down a very different road than I expected, but it's always been the violin first, so yeah, it's really fun.
Nice. And who are some of your influences musically as a performer?
Well, probably the biggest influence is Alan Sparhawk. He's in the band Low, but in 2011, he contacted me and asked if we'd like to do a project together, and I was like, well, of course, that's cool. But he introduced me to the looping pedal, and also to this idea of more expansive, longer sounds, and just kind of changed a lot. And then in other forms of music, like I really love lyrics and harmony, and so like Simon and Garfunkel, and the Decemberists, and Neutral Milk Hotel, and Wilco. I don't know, those are the things I grew up listening to. But in terms of what I specifically do, he was really influential for me. Yeah.
That's great. Tell us a little more about just working with Alan and the projects you've done together.
Yeah, well, we started back in 2011, as I said, and it was a live score to a film, a 1920s Halloween film. And it was way out of my range of what I had ever done, but I don't know, for some reason I felt like this will be a fun challenge. And he looped my violin in that project. And so I would just play harmony to what I was hearing, and we practiced a lot. I think we had like 6 or 8 pretty long rehearsals for that. And so after we were done, he's like, that was fun. We should probably book some shows. So we booked a show later in the month, and a couple of days before the show, I happened to write my first song. And it kind of came out of nowhere, and I showed it to him, and he's like, that's good. Let's do it tomorrow. So the murder of, which was
No
really
time like the
scary.
present.
Yeah, that wasn't what I was expecting. And so we did it the next day, and the Murder of Crows kind of evolved into like about half of my songs and then half instrumentals, and then he would do one or two of his songs now and then, and it became this kind of unique blend. But it was really him just like helping me get a start in songwriting, which was cool. I mean,
Yeah.
the singing part, it wasn't part of the plan, I don't think, initially.
So a lot of improvisation.
Oh, a lot of
Figuring out as
yep,
you go.
Yep. And then he brought me a looping pedal at one of the band practices and said, "This is for you. I think you'll like it. Like you should work on it, and someday you'll perform by yourself." And I thought he was not accurate, but turns out after a lot of practicing, it really is fun. And even solo shows have been
Yeah.
really fun. Nothing I envisioned, though. Yeah.
So as a solo performer, how has that change been? Like preparing for shows and going out on the road, for example. Like, what are the things we might just take for granted or might not necessarily realize in that process for you?
Well, in touring in general, you mean? Well, touring is awesome. I get to do it with my husband, and it's really, really fun to see the country and meet all these new people. Some of the things you don't think about is just like you have to play no matter how bad you feel or how stressed out you are or how tired you are, and just like creating the mental energy, or like how weird the venue is or the sound, or like you just kind of have to go with it. And that's something that I guess I have, I performed a lot before we left, but on the road you're not going to have all good days, and so you kind of just gotta just find a way to connect with the music and the audience, and remember that it's not all about you, and so like it's actually all about the audience, and so you have to just be there for that because that's your job. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's a little different take, but it's still, I still get the same like rewards out of it that I did when I was playing back at home. It's just on a little bit different context, I guess.
Yeah. So in terms of like the music and how you connect with the audience, just the tone of your songs, just the looping, the violin work, and just a lot of the subject matter that you sing about, like what is that like, just connecting with the audience, like the feedback you get from folks?
Yeah, my songs are kind of intense, I guess. Like I think a lot about spirituality, and I think with my disability, I've had some I wouldn't say near-death experiences like that, but I've had some experiences that have been kind of scary, and I think that kind of reminds you at a younger age than maybe normally that you're not immortal, and that life is short, and you have to like make the best of it, and I know that informs my lyrics and the subject matter that I write about. And so I guess they're kind of intense songs, and the violin is a very beautiful instrument that has all these long tones, and it clearly, I think it sounds like pretty close to a human voice in a different way. And so people respond pretty strongly to it. And it's cool because I get to hear what it is about the song that drew them in. And a lot of times I get to hear about their lives after shows. Like I really like meeting new people and learning about, what they liked about the music, but then also just what their lives are like. And it's been meeting new people is the part I guess I wasn't thinking as much about when we left. And then all of a sudden it's like the main thing. Touring that's like what you do. So you meet new people, and it's really cool.
Yeah. And seeing you perform live, it's definitely different than on the recordings, just because I think of that connection, that in-person connection that's going on. So even like coming up, and it was like, oh wow, I'm taken aback by it because of the intensity.
Cool. Yeah.
Speaking of intensity and just thinking about just shifting gears a little bit, let's talk a little bit about the Tiny Desk Contest.
Yeah.
And how that has just changed your experience as a musician and like career-wise, what the ramifications of that has been.
Yeah, well, I was glad they warned me that things were going to change when they told me. I guess I kind of had a feeling, but I didn't really realize the implications. So after the Tiny Desk Contest was announced and we went out to D.C., we did a few shows with NPR, and they were great. They're such good people. They're so awesome. So, and then I met Martin Atkins. He's from Chicago, and I've just been meeting people through that. That was the first big thing. But then the thing I wasn't really I didn't really know how it would go down is I got a lot more offers to play farther away. And so I started working with a booking agent last summer, and he has been booking us pretty much nonstop since October. So my husband and I both left our jobs, and we sold our house, and we bought a van, and we literally have been touring for the last many, many months. And it's been really fun. We've been to 37 states and done, I think, 150 shows and been to 5 countries. And it's just a very different life than I had before. I was teaching fiddle lessons in my hometown, and I was really enjoying that too. But this has been really cool, a very big adventure for us. And definitely because of the tiny desk, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so a lot has changed.
Sometimes people will, they'll be done being on the road and touring, and they'll go and do teaching, for example.
And I might do that again. I
Flip
loved
side.
teaching.
Yeah.
But we're going to just kind of keep going until we don't want to anymore. But it's, we did a 7-month thing where my husband had a leave of absence from work to help me because I can't tour by myself. Obviously, I need a lot more assistance, and so he's the guy that helps. And they were very understanding, and they said, sure, go see, and hopefully you'll come back. But if you don't, that's good news for us. And so they let us try it, and we, at the end of the 7 months, we decided to keep going. So, yeah, it's been fun.
So Europe, the U.S., the UK as well.
Mm-hmm.
So you've been on the road for a while. Tell us a little bit more about your experiences with touring.
Well, touring is one thing. It's really, really, really fun. It's pretty intense. You drive a lot. You don't always get enough sleep, and you are eating a lot of corn nuts. But then touring with a disability has been a whole nother different thing. So a lot of venues aren't accessible. I would say more than half. I mean, solidly more than half. And they might be accessible to the patrons, but not to the performers. And so people are always lifting my chair up or getting our ramps out of the van. And that's okay, but it's just another level of work. And it's not okay. That's the weird part about it. It's I am a pretty flexible person, and I've grown up adapting. But if you think about a venue, just making it welcoming and accessible provides me the same experience that any other performer would have. You don't picture Aerosmith being lifted on stage by 4 people and arranged in his chair before he plays, or or any artist. Bands don't have to do that. It kind of it changes the vibe of what's happening on stage, and so a lot of venues will equate to well, if we help you get on stage with your wheelchair, if we all lift it, then I don't need to get a ramp. But really being able to just do things on my own has a different level of dignity and self-control, and just things that most performers get to do without thinking about it, And then, just trying to find accessible hotels and just different little things that I guess I didn't really realize how much they added up until we went on the road with another musician named Jess Klein, and she's a really awesome lady, and we did 12 shows together, and she's like, holy cow, I thought touring was hard, but you guys are working really, really hard. But it doesn't have to be that way, and that's kind of the message I want to spread, is that accessibility can be a priority, and there's got to be creative ways. There's one venue that just wasn't accessible, not even to the guests, people couldn't have gotten in. And so I said, I'm really uncomfortable speaking about disability rights and then playing at a place where people with disabilities can't even go. So the venue was awesome and moved the event to a church and hosted it still, and they were the sponsor, but they moved it. And there's creative solutions like that all over the place. And I think we just need to start talking about it more.
Yeah.
Seeing what we can do as a community. I understand that some things are cost prohibitive in the moment, but there's always fundraising or being creative in different ways. So some venues build ramps, and those are my favorite venues.
Yeah.
They go out of their way to have it ready when we get there, and it just
good.
It makes it just warms my heart, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Just in thinking about venues in Chicago, for example, many of them can be just very difficult for people who are able-bodied to access at times. And so it sounds like from your experience, you might have a whole new set of opinions about that.
And I try to be understanding and give people the benefit of the doubt. But I think changing the dialogue from, wouldn't it be nice if we were accessible, to, we are really going to try to become accessible.
Yeah.
That would be cool. That's what I'd like to see. Yeah.
So as an artist, and just the purpose of the arts can be such an important thing for giving people a voice.
Yeah.
And giving people access. How do you see yourself as a musician being able to give people more of a voice in this area?
Yeah, well, I clearly can't speak for everyone with a disability, and I don't want to try to portray more opinions than my own. But I just think representation in the media is a really important thing, and in the arts, because if you're thinking about healthcare, for example, and all these reforms that people are talking about right now, and you never see a person with a disability, they're not going to come to mind right away. You know what I mean? And and I think the arts have a really important function to make it one of the first things you think about because you've seen it before, you know? And I can have a message to my music or I don't have to. I don't think it's about even the words I'm singing. It's just about being in the physical space of a performance venue and people making that connection that, oh, this does exist. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And people with disabilities can go out and do the things that they want to do and pursue their dreams, and like this is a reality. And you know, one of my newer songs that's going to be on the next album is actually about disability rights, but that's the first song I've ever written specifically about that issue, because I do think I don't need to always be singing about it, but I do want to be talking about it in talks like this, and just kind of raising awareness. You know, as a public figure, you can do that, and then just by setting an example in the public sphere so people can see it. You know, we think about festivals, for example, right?
Yeah.
That's a big one. I was talking to a festival organizer, and I understand why she said it, but she said, well, we don't pick acts based on their disability, but of course, if there's a talented person with a disability, we would have them. And I said, yeah, but if you had an all-white male lineup, you would hear about it. Like, you definitely would. Like, for sure, people would be outraged. And yet, disability doesn't have to be anywhere on the bill, and nobody says anything yet because it's so far out of the public sphere still. Like, we're working, and it's getting there where there's a little more infiltration where people start to notice that, hey, there's no one with a disability represented, but we're still pretty new at this, like, in terms of people have been working really hard to do it for a long time, but I'm saying, like, that's not something that you think about. Like, she hadn't made that connection, and when I said that, she's like, oh, you are right. Like, we would hear about that. And so why people aren't demanding more people with disabilities in the media is probably just because it hasn't been around that long. And the more you see, the more you'll notice that it needs to be there.
Yeah.
And that it has an important place, you know? Yeah.
For sure. And so, like, and again, like in the music industry, just in general, again, you don't really see that as much. How do you see that changing for the better? And how can your audience, you know, people who have been touched by your music, how can we actually, you know, maybe
Contribute to that.
contribute and take
Yeah.
a different approach?
Well, I think one of the things is I've heard the misconception that there aren't as many artists out there with disabilities, but I would argue that a lot of people with disabilities haven't had a lot of opportunity to grow their skill. You know, I started at open mics like 10 years ago. I didn't just like walk out and try the tiny desk and win. You know what I mean? I had been playing a lot, and I was lucky to have supportive people that helped me, but if the venue that the open mic is at is inaccessible, like, how are they gonna get there, and how will they learn their craft to really pursue it, you know? Or even just learning an instrument in the first place. If you're a music teacher, like, be creative, you know? That teacher that I had in 5th grade could have easily looked at me and said, you should just do choir. I mean, really, she could have said that, and it might not have even seemed that weird. And I'm so grateful that she didn't do that, you know? But a lot of teachers have more power than they realize at, like, helping shape the future of the arts. And so that's cool that she was willing to do that. And then the other thing I would just say is, like, if you're planning events of any kind, like, make sure accessibility is not just like a thing you think about and say, oh darn, this one won't be accessible, but really be creative and try to make sure you can indeed make it something people can get to. And if you don't know the answer to how to do that, talk to people with disabilities, because I'd be happy to share, and a lot of people would, because they want to be included, you know? And we're not going to say, well, the only way I'll go is if this building builds an elevator. You know, like, not necessarily. Like, there are other solutions besides just saying, we don't have $100,000. Too bad, I guess I won't go, you know?
Yeah.
And moving events to better venues is a part of that, to be honest, in my opinion. And that's not something everybody wants to hear, but I think thinking about where your venue is like is kind of an important part in, like, this whole sphere of the arts.
Yeah. And so the venue, like you shared an example of a venue where they changed venues and moved to a church. Have you had other experiences where maybe that has also occurred? Or is it
So far, that's the only one, but that's pretty recent because it kind of dawned on me. I mean, I know that's silly, but, like, I hadn't thought of that as an option.
Yeah.
And I was racking my brain, and I was like, well, I cannot do a show where someone in a wheelchair shows up, and they can't, like, I just can't do that, you know? And so it just kind of struck me. But I'm going to use that as a suggestion. a lot more often. We have done things where maybe the gig will be on the main level instead of the usual upstairs room, or
Yeah.
or if the stage is a billion feet tall, sometimes I play in front of the stage, partly because it's not really great for my wheelchair to be lifted up, and partly just so people think about it, like, oh, she's not on the stage, I wonder why. Oh, there is no ramp, and like point that out in a subtle way. And I don't have to talk about it while I'm playing, but I think it's important to just start in a nice and respectful way, because I don't think you get anywhere by attacking people, but in a way just saying this is actually an important issue, and we can be flexible to some degree, but at some point things do have to start changing, and that's just going to take a little bit of growing pains, I think,
Yeah.
and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. It's important,
Yeah.
So.
For sure. And definitely, I would say at Google, we really want to make sure the spaces are accessible. It's definitely an important piece of what Google cares about.
Yeah.
Diversity and inclusion is hugely important.
Yeah.
So that said, I had another question for you around just your passion for music.
Yeah.
I think I read someplace that at one point when you were growing up, you had an opportunity to have surgery, and you actually chose violin over that.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you expand a little bit more about
Yeah, so there's a bunch of surgeries. I would have had to have like 4 different ones where they would have broken the bones in my arms and legs and put a rod in there and straightened them. And you have to do one at a time, so it's 4 different operations. And I'm grateful that my parents let me decide. And a lot of people have those surgeries when they're very young, so it's not like that's bad. It's just that my parents said, well, we'll just let her choose. So as I got older, I kept thinking about it, and the option was on the table, and I knew about it. But then when I started playing violin, one of the potential problems with that surgery is that you can damage the nerves in your hands, because straightening your arm that much is very stressful on the nerves. And I just didn't want to not be able to play.
Yeah.
And there was no way to know. And so I decided not to have the surgery. I mean, also what 10-year-old wants to have massive amounts of surgery if they don't have to. So, but that was truly the deciding factor. Was I just didn't want to not be able to, because I really enjoyed music. And that's maybe the biggest message, is disability isn't actually bad. To me, I had a really awesome childhood. I had a lot of cool experiences, and I had good friends and good family, and wheelchairs I could tell were getting better and better, and the world was getting more accessible, and I didn't feel this need to be completed by being able to walk. I didn't feel like that was necessary to be happy, and ultimately music was necessary to be happy. And so when I do a lot of speeches, I'll talk about disability pride and how what the problem isn't the disability itself, it's society's inaccessibility. And when you reframe it that way, it takes away the pity, and it also puts responsibility on society to make sure that they're doing a good job of being accessible.
Yeah.
Because I have an awesome life, and I wouldn't be who I am without my disability, for sure. And so I don't regret it or dislike it or wish I was some other way, Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. And how do you see that maybe changing just in general in spaces, even beyond music? Say how society can do a better job?
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of work being done, and I think we're getting there slowly but surely. If you picture where we were 110 years ago, I mean, people with disabilities lived in back rooms of houses and never went out, and it's so much different than that, but it's because of a ton of activism. The disability rights movement, I mean, the ADA, all of these things didn't just happen. They were huge amounts of work that went into demanding that change. And there's still a lot of work to do. The fact that we're talking about cutting healthcare, Medicaid,
Yeah.
I mean, people will die and end up in nursing homes, and that's a really big deal, but obviously people are fighting that. So there's a lot of work to do, but I've seen progress. I mean, any new building in America has to be accessible, and I think that's really cool. I think we need to work better with small businesses that are older to get them up to date, and not see it as this doesn't have to happen because I'm an old building. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Work on that, and then work on job inclusion. It's much harder to get a job if you have a disability. One of the reasons I'm self-employed is it was easier than trying to convince people that I could be hireable. And I have a college degree, but it was difficult. So there's a lot of work to be done, but there's progress for sure. I mean, I just know that kids now, I've met older people with disabilities who say, I wish that I was like able to have pride in my disability the way the younger kids are. But I think the reason it is because the culture is shifting towards more acceptance of yourself and and of your body and like pride in who you are. And that is a real thing, I think, that's happening. And I can only speak for, again, myself, but there is progress. But definitely there's still work to do. And just, reaching out and asking what the work is a really good first step.
So that's a good first step.
Yeah.
Having toured internationally, have you seen any differences in how other cultures, or at least in Europe, might approach people with disabilities compared to the U.S.?
I thought it was going to be more different than it was. They don't have legislation like the ADA in a lot of other countries. But like Prague, especially, which was weird because it's super old, was surprisingly okay where we were. I'm sure there are parts that aren't. But like I had, I could have probably brought my electric chair. I didn't bring it because I had no idea. And then certain parts, like London was pretty accessible. Amsterdam wasn't as accessible as I expected. But I mean, it was pretty comparable. New York City is terrible. So like it depends on what you know what I mean? Every city's got its own threshold. And there's activists in all of those cities trying to make it better. So
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Well, we have about 5 more minutes before we open it up to Q&A. So for any Googlers in the audience, be thinking about any of your questions.
Yeah.
So I'd love to hear a little bit more maybe about, I guess, your album and your recent EP that you've
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, my first album came out in November of 2015, and I really wasn't planning on putting any singing on it at all. It was just going to be traditional fiddle tunes and some standards played with the looping pedal, and they're really rearranged. Like you'll recognize the melodies if you like fiddle music, but they're not always played in the regular order, and the rhythms are different, and the textures are different. But then I did end up including one original song and a traditional song that I sang on. And then after I won the Tiny Desk, people started asking me where they could buy the song that won, and the answer was nowhere, so I had to record it. So I recorded that on an EP, and with a guitarist friend, not Alice Barhock, but a guy named Al Church from Minneapolis, and he is awesome, and it was very, very fun. It was a fun project. And now I'm working on my third full-length album. I did a Christmas album, too, in November with Al, and it was really fun, Al Church. And then we're doing a full-length, but this one, not every song I've written can be looped. And so this one is going to be more of a full band sound because not every song is loopable, and just because it's fun. There's a really good drummer named Marty Dosh, and Al Church is on there, and a guy named Dave Mailing, and Andrew Foreman, and Alan Sparhawk's going to join me for a couple of songs too. So I'm super excited about that album, and that should be out. I'm releasing a couple tracks in November, and then there's a full length hopefully out in April, and there's a GoFundMe for it. So I'm like in the middle of that right now. We just recorded 4 of them.
Oh, great.
Yeah, and 4 of the songs. It's super fun. I don't know. Recording was scary at first, and it still does kind of intimidate me. But when you're with really creative people, it's just more of like this glorious creation process. And so it's been really fun.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. So are there marathon sessions in the studio, toying around with reverb settings and delays and all of that?
Yeah, we had a full weekend. This was our first time we got to get together, and there was 2 full days and then a half day. And it's hard work. It's fun though. I mean, we laughed a lot. We eat a lot of tacos. That's our main sustenance. Yes. So it was very fun. Yeah.
Gotcha. And here in Chicago, you actually just came back from a recording session, is that right?
Yeah, I recorded a cover of a Pigface song. Of course, right? So
as you do in Chicago.
As you do in Chicago, yes. No, it was fun. I played at their 25th anniversary show, and I did a cover of Point Blank, and we just recorded that. And that's going to be fun, too. It's been great getting to know Martin, and then his extended Pigface family. A lot of them were at my show. I had a show last night, and a lot of them came, so it was really, really fun. Yeah.
Yep, Martin's a friend of Google, and he's at Google Talk here as well, which is going to be up on our channel soon.
Yeah.
Also, I guess it's worth noting that we have some of your CDs for
Yeah.
sale in the
Yeah.
back. So for Googlers in the audience, be sure to check that out.
Yeah.
Well, it's very exciting. At this point, I think we can open it up for Q&A. If anyone is interested in asking Gaelynn any questions, there's a mic up at the front. So we'll give you a second to come on up.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Hi, it's really great to hear you speak. I actually discovered you from the Austin 100 for South by Southwest. That was actually where I'd heard about Tiny Desk, but didn't actually hear your music until the Austin 100 when it sort of came on. I was like, I need to hear more of this. So it was
Cool.
wonderful to get to hear you speak in person. I was curious because you were talking about you've done, I think, over 150 performances. If there's any particular performance that stands out from the past year that, might be your favorite and why that might be, and then is there any venues or places that are on your bucket list that you really, really want to play?
Oh, that's a good question. In terms of favorite shows, that Pigface 25 show was pretty amazing. It was at the House of Blues, and it was just such a great vibe. And then Paul and I, the Europe trip was pretty spectacular too. My favorite maybe was this show in Kilkenny in Ireland, and I do a song that's a sing-along with the audience. And I ended the song and they didn't stop singing. And so then I was like, okay, so then I sang with them for a while, and then I tried to end it again and they still didn't stop singing. And so Alan had to end the song because I was like, I don't know what to do. And how long will they go? I have no idea. And that was pretty memorable. And just I don't know, every show is pretty special. It's they're all different, but they really do. I've played at some schools. There's a school for kids with disabilities, and they also brought in a Catholic school at the same time, so I played for 2 schools, and they were just so pumped. They did the sing-along with me, and they I don't know, it was just such a happy vibe. I don't know, there's a lot of good shows, but those are some of the ones that stand out. And then bucket list venues, I don't even know. I don't know, last night at Reggie's was such a great vibe. I don't know, any room where the energy in the room is positive and the people are engaged and I don't know, it can be any size room. I don't really have a venue in mind, I guess. It'd be fun to play more festivals. Those are really cool, and I haven't done a ton of that. South by was one of my first solo festivals, so that was kind of cool. Yeah. I don't know.
Great,
Yeah,
thank you.
thanks.
Thanks. Anyone else?
Hello. I'm so inspired by your positive outlook on life and your attitude, and I was just wondering if there was anything else you attribute that to. It might just come naturally to you, but if there was anything in your life aside from society kind of being more appreciative and understanding of people with disabilities, and kind of where you draw that energy from.
Cool, thanks. I can't say that it's not partly inherent. I'm sure that it is. And my parents are really good at drawing out the positives, and so I got that. But then I also read a lot of things about spirituality. Christianity and Buddhism have both been really influential to me, and just the idea of extending grace to other people is an important thing. I am definitely not perfect. I can give you about 1 billion examples of times I've been a jerk, but I'm just saying, in general, I strive to be understanding and compassionate and loving, and I think that's because I do think life is this really cool opportunity to grow, and I don't know, that really motivates me to try better and just do better, and not necessarily mastering skills even so much as being a better person that's more loving, and I think we can all improve on that, obviously, and so it's a quest that will never end. So yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you for coming to Google and sharing with us your music, your life. I was wondering if you can share a bit with us the type of curriculum that you have followed when you started to play the violin. For example, you hold the violin in a non-traditional way. Was the studies that you had to do had to be adapted? How did it work?
Yeah. Luckily, I was sort of oblivious of all of that at the beginning, but I play regular violin music, or I did, but some things had to be adapted. Luckily, my teachers both at the beginning had some understanding of the cello, so many of the techniques I use are a little more related to the cello. I shift around the fingerboard more because I can't use my pinky, and so I have to move more. And my bow is, I hold it like a bass player, and so probably my bow technique is definitely not the same as violinist. But I did the regular curriculum in terms of, like, I played the same music that my orchestra played and the same parts, and just kind of adapted them as we went. I was very blessed to have teachers that were like, I mean, they would be upfront with me. They're like, I've never done this before. Let's see how it goes. And we would adapt as we needed to, and like that worked out okay. So when I taught, because I taught for 3 years, I didn't teach people how to play up and down. I taught them how to play the regular way. So I looked up like pictures and would be like, hold it like this, and like, but it works if you can communicate. It's a back and forth. And so I kind of experienced the same thing in reverse when I taught other people. You just kind of have to figure it out in the moment, and luckily I had people willing to do that with me. So yeah.
For sharing.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, and so we'll go to the dory really quick. We have one write-in question,
Oh, yeah.
which I think you might find interesting. What are the difficulties of working with your spouse on the road?
Assuming it's a difficulty, it's a blessing and a difficulty, but mostly it's a blessing. Like,
Yeah.
we've gotten to see so many cool things together, and I can be like, remember that thing that happened? And he actually knows what I'm talking about. I can't picture touring without him. I think that would be super hard. However, the difficulties lie in, like, shows are stressful for us in different ways. I might be really nervous before a show and be like a little snappier or tense or like a little more stressed out depending on the day if we didn't get enough sleep or whatever. And he's more like, he's the merch guy, right? And so he has to talk to like a million people right after the show. So we joke sometimes that like, it's like he has a show too. It's just not the same. So sometimes those things collide. And then I'm not the timeliest person on the planet of Earth. And so he's way more on time than me. So he'll be like, we should be leaving. We should have left. Like, let's go. And that's good. I mean, it's actually probably keeps me more on time. But yeah, you run into that. And then we're basically living in hotel rooms together. So you don't have a lot of space to yourself. But I don't think that's a super big problem. We've gotten used to that. Yeah, I mean, I realized there was one night where I went away with a friend, and it was the first like 24-hour period, not even, I'm talking like 4-hour period that we hadn't been together since October. And this was in May, and I was like, oh my gosh, we have been together nonstop. So even though we can like bicker or whatever, we never hold on to it, and it's been fun to see that you can actually adapt to living like extremely close quarters with another person.
Yeah.
So that's cool, actually. I mean, we might joke about it sometimes, but overall it's been really fun. So, yeah. But yeah, you are connected. I mean, this is his business as much as it is mine now. Like, he quit his job, and that's kind of a big deal. So like, we are both invested in it, and that is probably helpful to keep it like a team effort, because it really is at this point totally a team effort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Cool.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes. But it's
Life
fun.
on the road.
I know.
Life on
I
the
know.
road.
I never would have thought. Oh, a couple more
Got a
questions.
few more questions?
One more question?
Yep, great.
Sweet.
Hi, one more question. As you were speaking, how did you find accessibility to be for this office at Google?
I thought it was awesome. Yeah, you guys are good. I think it's really neat when the newer spaces come out, it's like everything gets more accessible, not less, so that's pretty
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, I've noticed positive stuff here.
Good
Good
stuff.
job.
Yep.
Hey, even at a ramp. That's
Yep.
kind of awesome.
Indeed.
Good job.
We'll let our head of
That would
facilities
have been
know.
really bad if you hadn't, I suppose, talking about it and then been like when you had to lift me up, but you didn't, so thank you. Yeah.
All right, well, thank you so much, Gaelynn. It's
Yeah.
been fantastic having you here.
Thank you.
We're going to transition, and I'm going to get off the stage so we can hear Gaelynn perform a few more songs. We do have a few more minutes left, so if you have time for maybe 2 more?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so a couple things, just be aware of Gaelynn's website, which is violinscratches.com. Her music is available, of course, there, as well as the Google Play Store. Have to give a plug for Google Play. Right?
Good point.
Thanks again. And whenever she's done, just please give a warm round of applause for Gaelynn Lea. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks.
Thanks so much.
Thanks. Can you turn down the reverb? Thanks, Paul. Sweet. Our love's a complex vintage wine, all rotted leaves and lemon rind. I'd spit you out, but now you're mine. We bit the fruit, it seemed a lie. I'll never know which way was right. Now side by side we face the night. And I love you. And I love you. We walked the pier and back again. It was the most scared I've ever been. You held my hand until the end. And I love you. And I love you. Don't tell me we've got time. The subtle thief of life, it slips away when we pay no mind. We pulled the weeds out till the dawn, nearly too tired to carry on. Someday we'll linger in the sun, and I love you. And I love you. And I love you. And I love you. Thank you. Thanks. So this next song is from my new album, which is, there's a GoFundMe at GoFundMe/Gaelynn Lea, and it's called Bound by a Thread. It's one of the newest songs I have written. Thanks for having me, you guys. Bound, bound, bound by a thread, going down, down through the ages. You could have stayed, but you came here instead to fill my life's empty pages. And I do believe we'll see the fruits of our labor. Maybe not now, maybe lifetimes ahead. If only love could be our guide. Bound, bound, bound by a thread, going down, down through the ages. You could have stayed, but you came here instead to fill my life's empty pages. And I do believe we'll see the fruits of our labor. Maybe not now, maybe lifetimes ahead. If only love would be our guide, our guide, our guide, our guide, our guide. If only love would be our guide. Thank you. Thanks.